For 8 working days, pensioner bondholders who self-exempted from government's domestic debt exchange program picketed at the office of the Finance Ministry to demand for an issuer's exemption. They took their lobbying, they took their protest to higher authority, including the Speaker of Parliament. This resulted in the Minister of Finance being invited to the House to answer some questions pertaining to the domestic debt exchange program. Today, February 16, the Minister came into Parliament, and before the Minister spoke, I caught up with the convener for the Pensioner Bondholders Forum, Dr. Edu Anane Entry, who had come to Parliament to listen to the Minister. I asked him what his expectations were as they eagerly awaited for the Minister's arrival.
We told the Minister we will come today to support him to grant us the exemption, and that's why we are here. Our basic request and what we are expecting is for the Minister to put in whatever statement he is going to give, to include in that statement that pensioner bondholders have been exempted. Yesterday, he said he was going to discuss with the President. As to what they will say, I don't know, but once it comes out that from the statement that pensioners have been exempted, or even all individual bondholders are exempted, we are fine, and then we stop the picketing.
What if you don't hear this statement made on the floor of Parliament today, even after consultations with the President?
Well, that will mean the President didn't agree. And therefore, if we are picketing, we will be picketing against the President's decision not to exempt us. We will continue to picket, but I don't think the President will say we shouldn't be exempted and that we will continue to go and picket. The President will not do that. I don't think the President will do that. So I'm hopeful that if the Minister was going to discuss with the President, the result will be a positive response from the President that you can't allow these pensioners to continue to picket at the Ministry, exempt them. It will not affect anybody, not anybody at all. No child, no adult, no institution. Nobody will be affected when you just say pensioners have been exempted. So we don't see why the challenge.
Would that mean that you move the picketing grounds away from the Finance Ministry, closer to the President?
Well, if it comes to that point, and of course, if they haven't declared the place as a security zone, we will go there if it comes. But I don't think it will come to that.
Our parliamentary correspondent, Ni Ayukwe Okai, was in the chamber and followed proceedings for us.
The Business Committee of Parliament invited the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, to appear before the House upon a directive by the Speaker of Parliament, Alban Bagbina. And on Thursday, February 16, 2023, the Finance Minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, was in Parliament to provide a policy brief on the government's domestic debt exchange program. He announced that he has officially written to the pensioner bondholders of their exemption from the domestic debt exchange program.
Mr. Speaker, government remains committed to the well-being and dignity of our senior citizens and pensioners. Indeed, it has personally, Mr. Speaker, caused me great distress as a number of our pensioners have picketed at the premises of the Ministry of Finance since Monday, February 6, 2023. I have already indicated in my press release, Mr. Speaker, dated 14th February 2023, the government will honor their coupons, payments, and maturing principles, like all government bonds, in line with government's fiscal commitments. Mr. Speaker, in seeking to understand the concerns of our senior citizens, I have met with them on 3 occasions. The most recent was yesterday, 15 February 2022, where I explained the terms of the new bonds. Mr. Speaker, I subsequently wrote to their convener, letting him know, Mr. Speaker, that all pensioners who did not participate in the bond offering are exempted. Mr. Speaker, I pray that puts paid to the need for our senior citizens to picket at the ministry. Mr. Speaker, I would like to thank all those who helped in those discussions for this.
The minister expressed hope in stability of the interest, inflation, as well as the exchange rate following the conclusion of the domestic debt exchange program.
I'm confident that with the program government has set out for this year, supported by Parliament, will get us out of the economic crisis that has besieged our economy since COVID-19 reached our shores back in March 2020. I am confident that with the conclusion of the domestic debt exchange program, we will experience stability in the exchange rates, inflation and interest rate, bringing businesses and families some respite. Mr. Speaker, with the successful completion of the DDEP, we believe that with the sustained support of Ghanaians and this august House, we will recover from this economic crisis sooner rather than later, as indicated by His Excellency President Akufo-Addo.
Ken Ofori-Atta also announced that the domestic debt exchange program will put an end to the central bank's financing of the government's budget going forward.
Mr. Speaker, as already stated in the House in November, we did lose access to the international capital markets at the beginning of 2022. At the same time, budget implementation was confronted with domestic financing challenges from the auctions, as well as lower than estimated domestic revenue mobilization. These presented a very challenging macroeconomic environment during 2022, leading to a widened financing gap of the budget, and therefore became necessary for the Bank of Ghana to fund shortfalls at the auction market to avoid disorderly default and prevent a deeper crisis. Mr. Speaker, it was necessary for the government to seek financing from the Bank of Ghana to augment its fiscal operations for the year. The Bank of Ghana last week concluded work on its financial accounts for 2022 and reports that the total overdraft extended to government for 2022 was 37.9 billion. Mr. Speaker, in line of Section 30, Clause 6 of the Bank of Ghana Act 2022, Axis 1-2, I'm using this platform to inform the legislature of the financing of the budget by the Bank of Ghana. The domestic debt exchange exercise and the external debt restructuring program will make such financing unnecessary going forward in 2023 and beyond.
After all was said and done, the pensioners were pretty appreciative of the government for finally heeding their request. They met with the finance minister later to thank him for the gesture. I'm sure now they can focus on their retirement and living their normal lives without all the heightened anxiety that came with the likely restructuring of the bonds payments and due dates.
All that they were asking for, to be exempted just as pension funds has been exempted. That is all the struggle. Whether exemption means this or means that is not their matter. They want to be exempted as pension funds has been exempted. And after 5 weeks of struggling, the minister has now given in and the exemption has been granted.
What does it mean for the culture of protest? The fact that you have done this peacefully and finally been able to achieve your aim, what does this mean for the culture of protest and our democracy at large?
Well, that is a good sign that our elderly have shown that you can. They didn't have any strength. As weak as they were able to do this for 8 days, picketing at the place for 8 days, peacefully. Nobody insulted anybody. You don't throw anything at anybody, but you get your results. The challenge that we have here is how our young ones, face such situations. So now it is it's something that the elderly ones have done, and the young ones, you learn from it. That if you don't agree to a policy, you can demonstrate, but it should be peaceful, not clashing with police, not burning cars, not burning ties, pushing people away. No, that shouldn't be the case. We can protest but protest peacefully. If people who do not even have the strength, weak as these elderly people were, they were able to go through this protestation by going to sit somewhere quietly, not disturbing anybody, not doing anything to disturb the peace, and they have achieved this result, then we could continue like that without engaging in violence to protest against policies. So that is something that I want the young ones to learn that you can protest, but not violent. You can do your peaceful protest and you still get the results.